The Ravens are the best team in the NFL. Are you buying or selling?
Well, I'm only selling because I'm a Lions are the best team in league truther, but I'm going to say, Hunter,
All right,
look,
let me,
second best
yeah.
in my opinion, and I'm ready to hear all your points, so
Let,
lay it on me.
let's see if I can get you to trade in the Lions for the Ravens. So
All right, I'm
right
all
now,
ears. I'm all ears.
right now, the Ravens are second in offensive EPA per play, first in yards per game, tied first with the Commanders for points per game, first in offensive touchdowns with 25, top 7 in quarterback pressures allowed, so the least amount of quarterback pressures allowed. First in runs over 10 plus yards, which is 45 more than the next team. First in rushing yards over expected at 466. First by 220 yards. Now going over to the defensive side of the ball. They're first in runs of 10 plus yards allowed, only 6. So that means they're averaging less than one 10 plus yard run a game. Ninth in run stuff percentage, that's runs stopped at the line of scrimmage or behind. Second in rushing yards over expected at a minus 119. Only 2 teams have minus 100. First in rushing yards per game allowed at 68.4. 32nd in passing yards per game, so that's kind of where their weakness is on defense. 29th in pass EPA per play, but they're 4th in sacks at 22, 7th in quarterback pressure, and 30th in yards after catch allowed at 1,050. So we're seeing them really struggle once the receivers catch the ball and run, and also just in general in the pass game. But overall, they are able to stop the run. Teams with very not good quarterbacks and not good offensive systems are going to struggle against this team, regardless, because they're not going to be able to run the ball. So are you buying or selling that the Ravens are the best team in the NFL?
Well, look, I'll say it like this. You know what? I gotta say, they're tied with the Lions. They are. I mean, look, because we'll say it from the perspective of,
Ooh,
bless you.
thank you.
We'll say it from the perspective of we'll say best in the AFC, and then you got the Lions best in the NFC. So I say, yeah, look, you know what? They're tied from my point of view. I will admit that. And I'll say this too, because the more I sit there and I think about it, even just as you're talking, I will say from a matchup standpoint right now, I do think the Ravens have the edge. Because as we've talked about, look, it's a run first league now. If you can't run the ball super effectively, you're screwed. Not that the Lions can't run the ball really well, too, because we know that would be an absolute lot. Lions are a fantastic running team, and they have a nice duality. But I would say the Ravens have an even better duality, because the Ravens' duality is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of the running joke right now, like who's going to figure out how to stop it. But it's not a joke to me, because genuinely, who is going to figure out how to stop it? I mean, and out of the shotgun, because I know there's a lot of discussion, well, is Derrick Henry going to be able to adjust to being shotgun first? And is it going to affect him not being able to run downhill? Well, the answer very clearly is absolutely not. I mean, like, Derrick Henry's having the best year of his career. It very well could be the best year of his career. I'm not going to say the best, right? Because we know about that offensive player of the year season, but it could be the best year of his career. Wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being. And he's playing just at an all-world level. As we've already known, he's the king. We counted him out a couple years ago, Hunter. Biggest mistake of our lives. We said we were never going to make the same mistake again. You can't count out the king. He's proving why week in and week out.
Yeah.
But it's not even just that either, right? I would say the O-line is really starting to come into its own. Versus the first few weeks, it was like, oh my God, like, is this O-line going to be the bane of this team? But now you're not sitting here thinking that. Now you're like, oh, okay, the O-line's really coming to its own. We can see this unit for what it is. They're getting better every single week, which is exactly what you want to see if you're a Ravens fan. I mean,
they are the third graded pass block and 8th graded run block via PFF right now.
No, like, yeah, they're coming into their own. They're making huge strides. The receiving core, again, it's nothing special per se, but like I always like to remind people, as I'll always keep harping on, great quarterbacks like Lamar don't necessarily need the greatest weapon set in the world. They need a really good scheme. They need guys who understand what they need to do when they get in space. And so far this year, that's what the Ravens are doing. So it doesn't really matter from the standpoint of they don't have, right, the greatest weapons. They have 2 great tight ends. They have a great, like we just talked about, the great O-line. So from an offensive perspective, you have everything you need, bottom line. And then on the defensive side, as we already discussed before we started recording, kind of behind the scenes, look, yeah, the Ravens pass defense game, it leaves brutal. A lot to be desired per se, but they make up for it in the run defense. And on top of that, I think they're going to keep making strides in the pass defense, as we even saw yesterday. Kind of one of those games where the score doesn't really tell the result. I mean, they had Baker Mayfield and the Bucks in a bind for 85-90% of the game. Then the Bucks made a run at the tail end when the Ravens definitely they didn't just take their foot off the gas, Hunter. They parked at the gas station and went inside to go get a hot dog and a beverage. It wasn't they weren't even in the car anymore. So it's one of those games where it doesn't really tell the full story of what the game was and the scope of how they played. I would say it was much better pass defense yesterday. And I think that's kind of what you should expect going forward if you're a Ravens fan, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is Mark Andrews started looking like Mark Andrews last night. And Zay Flowers, I hope he's healthy and he'll be fine. But even Bateman has taken a huge step this year. So while they have not had the weapons historically for Lamar, seems like the weapons that they have put in place are finally stepping up. And that is a huge deal for the Ravens. That is huge. I mean, I think we all knew the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry backfield was going to be kind of ridiculous. Oh, he's 30 years old. The dude is going insane. I want to find his rushing yards per game. Well, Derrick Henry right now through 7 games actually, is at 873 yards. 873 yards. Do you think there is a chance? Let me ask you this, Stops, while I pull up his yards per game. Do you think he could break 2,000 yards on the ground?
Well, no, that's why I said, I said he's having the best year of his career. And I had to pause myself because I remembered Derrick Henry 2K. But then I remembered it's very possible and actually statistically likely right now that if he keeps up the same pace, he will break the 2K again.
Oh, yeah. I forgot he did it in 2020.
Well, yeah, no, again, that 2020 season was unreal. But that's kind of the point. Is that's King Henry's pedigree. He can do it again. I mean, at this point, it's kind of been like a hot discussion recently. Derrick Henry's on pace. We already knew he was going to be one of the greatest of our generation. And now he's on potential pace to be one of the greatest of all time. I mean, not that he wasn't already necessarily potentially in that discussion, but again, it was kind of like, yeah, is he going to start getting older and are the wheels going to fall off? And is he just going to be remembered as one of the greatest of our generation, or is he going to be one of the greatest of all time? I think we're starting to shift the discussion to no, Derrick Henry's looking like he's going to finish his career as one of the greatest running backs just of all time. You can put him in any generation. He's one of the greatest of all time. So, I mean, if you're a Ravens fan, you got to be ecstatic. He could have come to a better system. And I know a lot of people right now, this side tangent, but it's kind of a hot discussion today. Oh, Jerry Jones is such an idiot. Jerry Jones didn't pay Henry, and he was saying that, Derrick Henry would have been having as good of a season on the Cowboys. I think that's just Jerry Jones being honest. I mean, honestly, we should be very happy as NFL fans that he didn't end up on the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Because if he ended up on the Cowboys, it would not look anything like this right now. It just squarely would not. That's just objectively a statement. So we should be very happy and thankful he ended up on the Ravens, because now we get to see King Henry at his peak, which is what we all deserve.
If the Ravens are able to figure out their pass defense, then I truly do think they are probably the best team in the league, because I do like the personnel a little bit better in the secondary than I do the Lions. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you don't know ball, want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, let us know in the comments if you think the Ravens are the best team in the NFL.